When James Gunn took over and announced an entirely new lineup of DC projects, we all expected The Flash to be the leeway into Gunn's new DCEU and to effectively close off the DCEU. However, the film ending with everything virtually the same in the DCEU except, spoiler warning, with George Clooney as Batman instead of Ben Affleck, it shocked me. Then the post-credit scene came, and it was another joke of a scene with Aquaman and Flash talking to each other about the events of The Flash, and that's it. That's the movie that was supposed to lead into the new DCU. No, it wasn't. And James Gunn never wanted it to be. So welcome to Big Flick Energy, and today I'll discuss what the actual plan to end the DCU is, and how they tie this in to James Gunn's DCU. First off, let's go back to The Flash and its ending. James Gunn, when he first announced Chapter 1 of his DCU, stated,
The Flash, a fantastic movie that I really love, that resets the entire DC universe.
Which it obviously didn't do. But like I mentioned before, it did reset who Batman is played by. Yes, George Clooney is now the Batman of the DCU, which I guess means there is a Robin in the DCU now, which is pretty crazy to think about. But nobody expects this to be the James Gunn's master plan. Especially with him saying absolutely not when asked if Clooney will be this universe's Batman, and him also saying that his Batman will be a new actor. What I think is being underlooked is actually the end credit scene. I don't think it's supposed to be just a funny scene. Instead, I think Aquaman knowing about time travel will play a vital role in the ending of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I always found it strange before the release of The Flash that although that movie was supposed to reset everything, Aquaman 2 was still being released after it, which would have made that film and character part of Gunn's DCU. Now it makes so much more sense though if Aquaman 2 is actually the end of the DCEU, not The Flash. Gunn, when talking about Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, talks very shortly about Aquaman 2, just saying,
To Aquaman 2, which leads directly into our next few projects.
Which is when he begins speaking about the world he's making. Now him saying it leads directly into the next few projects could definitely just be a transition phrase. But logically, having Aquaman 2 be the final DCU project and showing him at the end of Flash, I believe has a larger meaning to it. So let's talk about Aquaman 2. Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom is a film which has done half a dozen test screenings and has apparently gotten horrible feedback from all of them. So honestly, I'm not that excited for this film. But I have heard from other sources that those criticisms are too harsh, and while it's not a top-tier film, it's a fun adventure film similar to the first Aquaman. What we know about the film, though, is at a certain point, Michael Keaton was showing up as Batman in it. At another point, Ben Affleck was supposed to show up as Batman in it. Now apparently the Batman content has been completely removed. Although we don't know what was happening behind the scenes in the most recent reshoots of the film. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if these reshoots actually have George Clooney show up as Batman and have a completely different ending. To speak about the ending, I want to discuss who the villain is. Yes, Black Manta will be an antagonist alongside side antagonists of Karshan and Stingray, but there are reports of Atlan being the main villain in the film, otherwise known as the Dead King. Taken directly from fortressofsolitude.co, many modern Atlanteans are unaware that the once revered king was actually responsible for sinking Atlantis. His brother Orin betrayed him, killing his wife and children and forcing the king to go on the run as he and his loyalists were being hunted. The good king went mad with a vengeance, and using his arcane knowledge, he forged 6 artifacts of Atlantis. When he returned years later, having never uttered a single word all the time he'd been gone, Atlan killed Orin and his queen. Atlantis fell into a brutal civil war, and Atlan finally broke his silence with the words, "Let it all die," before sinking the nation he had spent much of his life building. The ancient king then entered a magical sleep, where he would spend centuries before someone awakened him. So if this is the path they take with Atlan in the sequel, which makes sense considering the name of the film, it's possible Atlan's return sees him trying to sink more than just Atlantis, and instead the world. Because Atlan is so much more powerful than any Atlantean as one of the old gods, I don't think Aquaman will be able to logically defeat him, but instead believe this can make for an interesting ending to the film, which will lead into Gunn's DCU, close out the DCEU, and give explanation as to why they chose to pair Flash with Aquaman in the end credit of The Flash. What should happen in this film is Atlan should win and actually drown the world, but not before Aquaman can approach Flash and ask him to turn back time to stop everything. Obviously, after everything Flash went through in his own film, he refused until he sees the world will end if he doesn't time travel. My idea for this actually came from the first season of the Flash TV show, where the weather wizard is unleashing a tsunami on Central City, which will kill thousands of people, until Flash time travels to stop it from happening. So we'll see Flash time travel to stop this, but it won't work as he realizes this is a fixed point in time that can't be changed, similar to what happened in the Flash movie, unless if he travels far enough back that it'll result in an entirely new timeline. So he does this, because if he doesn't, his world will die. He prevents Atlan from being woken up at the beginning of the film, and because he changed the past and the events of the film never occurred, like they explained in the Flash film, it not only changed the future, but also this new world's past, where the only fixed moment in time was the awakening of Atlan. What better way to start Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, than by this new world being created because of one of the old gods? Now, it's not the best conclusion to the DCEU, but considering the Flash didn't close up the story off, I would personally rather have Aquaman 2 close the story off and show the new universe, rather than there being no explanation at the end of Aquaman 2 about why this world of storytelling is over. We already know characters like Blue Beetle, Peacemaker, and Amanda Waller will connect into Gunn's DCU, even though their projects aren't part of that world yet, considering Gunn said the first DCU film is Superman Legacy. But using the logic of The Flash, where some characters look the same while others look different because of the fulcrum of time travel, would make sense, and all they need is for Flash to time travel one more time to allow for this to happen. It would also allow for Jason Momoa to leave the role of Aquaman and do what he really wants to do, be Lobo in this universe, which I would absolutely love to see. So, thank you for watching this video, and while not the best conclusion to the DCEU, I still think it's the current best solution and would make the most sense considering how they ended the story of The Flash. Please let me know what you think in the comment section down below of your thoughts on The Flash, if you're excited for Aquaman 2, if you think this would be a good way to end the DCEU, or if there's a better way considering we only have 2 projects left, or any other thoughts you might have. Thanks again for watching, please like and subscribe, and see you next time on Big Flick Energy.